And all right, everyone, welcome back to another installment of our Ask the Editor series. Thank you so much to all of you who have been following along. I've been having so much fun getting to know all these editors and their amazing magazines. And today I am super excited to have Luiza Flynn-Goodlett here from Foglifter. Hi, Luiza, how are you?
Hi, great.
Luiza is joining us from Oakland, and she is the editor-in-chief of Foglifter. So a little bit about the journal. Foglifter is created by and for LGBTQ plus readers and writers. Continues the San Francisco Bay Area's tradition of groundbreaking queer and trans writing with an emphasis on publishing those multi-marginalized, there's a lot here, BIPOC youth, elders, and people with disabilities. Their biannual journal features the widest possible range of forms with an emphasis on transgressive, risky, challenging subject matter, innovative formal choices, and work that pushes the boundaries of what writing can do. By putting extraordinary queer and trans writers into conversation, they uplift a growing community of LGBTQ plus readers and writers and carve out space in the larger literary community for voices that have historically been silenced. And a little bit about Luiza. Luiza Flynn-Goodlett, her is the author of Look Alive, a finalist for numerous prizes, including the National Poetry Series and winner of the 2019 Cowles Poetry Book Prize from Southeast Missouri State University Press, along with 7 chapbooks. That's great. Most recently, The Undead, winner of 6th Finch Books 2020 Chapbook Contest, and Shadowbox, winner of the 2019 Madhouse Press Editors Prize. Her poetry can be found in Tri-Quarterly, Third Coast, Pleiades, and elsewhere. Learn more at luizaflynngoodlett.com. And thank you again, Luiza. It's so great to have you here. And I've been intrigued by Foglifter for quite some time. It's just, there's a lot going on the website. The journal looks great. So I'm really excited to talk to you and learn more about this magazine. So let's jump right in. Like, tell us the origin story of the magazine. When did it launch? It looks sort of recent, but you have a lot of issues already. What was the impetus? And yeah, how did it all begin?
So I may not have the exact dates right, but our founding editors, Maya and Chad, met at Lambda, the literary fellowship that they do in the summers, and they connected there and started talking about. So there are very few like queer and trans literary journals, and even like presses that exist, and many of them that existed at that point no longer existed. So they were sort of talking about how they wanted to make a queer and trans literary space that would also make space for those voices in the larger literary community. Because I think one of the things that we, as queer and trans writers, like, we're always a little afraid of getting kind of on the gay shelf and sort of saying like, well, that's the place you want to be. And like, so they met, they decided to start the magazine. That was, I think, in 2014. And then we put our first issue out in 2016. So it's biannual. So we have, now we're going into our, what is it? Many, like 12th, I think, is coming up. It goes fast. And so, so we, at the beginning, we were, a very like collective, no one had titles, we all were editors, and then we sort of have over the years, the past 5 years, like formalized our roles, and also we have, a development director. We're like a nonprofit, and so that, I think we sort of went from being this kind of scrappy little team, trying to find time to do this, to a real growing and robust nonprofit that now we have a chapbook series in partnership with 2 other Bay Area literary organizations that's called Start a Riot. And that is for emerging BIPOC, Indigenous, and people of color writers in the Bay Area. And then we did an anthology. So we continue to expand beyond the journal, but of course the journal is the heart of what we do.
Yeah, I was really interested because I saw on the website that you guys have a board, which
We
is,
do.
yeah, for many online magazines, that's surprising. So it looks like a real kind of professional operation that you have going on.
It
So
is. Yeah. If
yeah,
you're a nonprofit, you have to have a board.
yeah.
So yeah, that was one of the first things that that like before I even joined, they made us into a nonprofit so that we could
Okay,
do fundraising from foundations. Like we
right.
are in a place, a really lucky place in the Bay Area, where there is a lot of funding for the arts, one of the very rare places. And so that's where we get most of our funding, along with like fundraising and individual donors, obviously. But yes, and then our magazine, it has obviously it's in a physical form. This is our most recent. Oh, is it? Okay, it's not our most recent issue. Actually, our most recent issue is on my bedside table because I'm rereading it. So we have the physical book.
Can you hold it up again? Because actually, I don't. Yeah, I've never seen a physical copy. It's really cool.
It's really beautiful. This one is one of the ones that have that like kind of like soft cover versus like the shiny ones are like this.
Oh, okay.
Right. And that's like more like bright and shiny. Yes. So we have, each one is really different, and we work with amazing artists, and then we design everything in house. I think the book is really beautiful. Like we have I think the like font story is gorgeous. Everything, I don't know. It's a beautiful sort of art object in and of itself. And that's down to Maya, one of the founding editors who creates that as our production manager.
And is every issue online and print, or is that a special anthology?
So we don't have a ton of online content.
I'm totally mistaken. Oh, that's so interesting, because the site is so dynamic. I just assumed it was an online. Okay.
I love that, because I feel like when I first started, we also, like, our website was very rudimentary, and we sought out a grant to redo the website. So it's so exciting that you find the website so dynamic. But yes, we have a very active blog, and there's a lot of book reviews and interviews on there, and a lot of content from the journal is featured on the blog, just to, because I do think one of the things that as you know, as a writer, a lot of times you publish something in a journal and it kind of is like, okay, well, no one's ever going to see that again. Like if they didn't get this journal issue, like maybe it'll be in your book, but like, you know, it's pretty much gone. So one of our long-term projects, don't get too excited right now, but is to we have the PDFs, and we can like pull out like basically what poets.org does, and have them all of them tagged and living on the website. So you could search like summer, and you would have like you know, a poem by Mimi Tempest, and you'd have, you know, like, so, and then you'd be able to like travel through the journals like more dynamically. But that obviously is a big project to like take each part of it and like categorize it and put it on the website. But yes, we have a lot of online content, but we also know it's really important for writers to have their work also in a physical book. Like that feels really exciting too. So eventually we want to have both. And we also do have an EPUB of every journal. So not just for being able to read it on the Kindle, but for accessibility, it's so important for people to be able to have the book read at them from their devices. So
sure. Yeah. And is the physical journal available in bookstores, or should people get it from the website?
So you can buy it directly from the website, and you can also buy it in bookstores. We have been doing a big push into bookstores and also into classrooms. So that's been going really great. Yeah. I mean, I think there are a lot of people who teach like queer literature at the, you know, the college level. And I'm not sure that all of them are teaching like literary magazines or showing necessarily that like, this is literature that's still being written. Right. Not just as like a book, but also that like there's a dynamic kind of community of writers that are having a conversation. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. So you mentioned that when you guys first started, there wasn't much of this going on. So have you noticed changes in the literary culture, and do you feel like your magazine is part of that ongoing conversation, and how have things changed since you've been involved with this project?
Well, I will say, like, it may also be that, like, part of the reason that I'm noticing these changes is because I am now in this community versus like, you know, when I was just a writer and I didn't feel as connected. But I know that recently one of our contributors, Adi Sai, had started Femme and Dandy magazine, which is like about queers and fashion. I think they had their first issue launch, or having their first issue launch, like this week.
Yes.
And then also we have like Shade Literary Arts, which is incredible. They have their own journal and have been raising money for queer writers of color. And so I feel like there's more like, and then there's also, you know, there's still there's still stalwarts like Gertrude and places that like I absolutely have published and love, and, you know, and Lambda is like, you know, so there is, I think the community feels to me like it's growing, and it's kind of more is more.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
For me, I'm like, yes, start it. Let me help you. Like,
yeah.
Then we can have a conversation that feels like, I don't know, we can go off and do our weird thing and you can do your weird thing. And then like, there's something for everyone.
Totally. And are you guys doing events in the Bay Area, or has that sort of been on hiatus recently?
So we've been doing digital or virtual events. We do usually, we actually have just been talking about this. I think we're going to go in the fall, we're going to go back to in-person events. But we still want to try to have a virtual component, because it's been amazing how, you know, because before it would be like for issue launches, we would put out a call and be like, if you can get to the Bay Area, we would love to have you read. Whereas now it's just like, okay, who wants to read?
Right. Yeah, totally.
Anyone. I think that's really special. But yeah, so we've been doing virtual events, and we do usually a lot of in-person events. And that we're gonna be back at it.
Okay, that's great. What are things like? Everything's open up again out there.
It was like yesterday or something when I went out to walk my dog, and I was like, I don't think I have to wear a mask, and I feel naked.
New world.
It's weird.
That's exciting. Yeah.
So
take us. Sorry. Yeah.
No.
Take us through your editorial process. So, how frequently do you publish? How many submissions do you generally get? And what goes on behind the scenes with these submissions?
So we publish twice a year. Our open submission periods are in the spring, March 1st to May 1st, and in the fall, September 1st to November 1st.
Okay.
We have something that I think is kind of unique, where we have a guest editor program. So every genre, so there's sort of three general genres, poetry, fiction, and then hybrid drama, nonfiction is kind of all the little, and those have managing editors, and they choose ideally from the previous issue, but sometimes they can go back and pick and ask someone to be a guest editor. And there's a stipend for that, and they join our editorial room for one issue and one genre. So guest editors, and then we have, it really spiked because we won that like Whiting Literary Magazine Award last year. And so right after that, we had a huge spike. We actually ended up having to like change our submittable account to like the CLMP one, because we like kept hitting our cap. And if you're only open for 2 months, you can't keep hitting your cap. Like you have to be able to accept. That would be okay if it was like, we're always open and we only take 300 submissions a month. But if you're only open for 2 months, you can't cap.
So this is like super behind the scenes.
It is so, I know, is this too much?
I didn't even know, like, I don't know how, I just know submittable on my end as a writer and the agony.
Oh my God.
thereof.
No, it's worse on our side. I hope you're not listening, but oh my God.
So what is it? What's the cap? So is that like,
okay. Oh my gosh. So
give us
inside baseball. Like, I hope this would be interesting to me. I hope it's interesting to anyone else, but, so basically, for a very long time, we had been grandfathered into this submittable account where it was like really, really cheap. And to get what we wanted, which was like we just needed a couple more seats. So seats are like how many people can read.
Okay.
We were all sharing logins because we had so few seats. So like one person from the poetry team, one person from the fiction team, and one person from the hybrid team would share one login.
So wait, so to clarify, so what would happen would be a writer submits their work.
Yes.
And then there's a certain number of seats, meaning like a certain number of people that can access
that can like log into our submittable, basically.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so we had like a fake, like not a real email address that they would use to log in because like it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we were like, this is not working. And especially with guest editors, it felt really weird to be like, so you can't use your own like submittable login. We're going to give you this like weird one.
Right.
But basically it was like the next up account that you could get to even get like enough seats for the team was like, I want to say it was like, it couldn't have been like $900 a month, but it was something where it was like, it was something where it was bananas and we definitely couldn't afford it.
Right.
Especially at this time. Like I think this was like 3 years ago. So so CLMP has, if you're a member as a literary magazine, you can get like a special account through them.
Okay.
But Submittable always finds a way to like make it bad. Okay. Right. So we're like, okay, we got it. We're getting this new one. It's happening. We're so excited. Everyone can use their own accounts to log in. And that meant we could also not have everything assigned to everyone. We could create like teams, which is like so much better when you have a lot of submissions. So we're so excited. And then it's like, oh no, you can only have 5 fields on your submittable form.
What is that?
That was the catch. Okay, so think about when you go to submit something and it says like title, like cover letter, upload.
Right.
We could only have 5.
Oh.
So we created like a complex like demographic survey. Well, we couldn't do that anymore. We had to like create a Google form to collect demographics and just like ask people to please like honor system fill out like this so we can collect these anonymously. So that has been very frustrating. So that's what we have now.
Sorry to cut. I mean, it's interesting because it presents sort of political problems, right? So if you are trying to create that, if you are trying to target a specific demographic, then this process is going to make it harder for you to do your work.
Yes, and we were like, can we buy? Well, so what we do, how we. So 2 things. We asked them like, can we just buy a couple more? And they were like, more fields. And they were like, no, it's hard coded into this plan. We can't do that. It's also like, you did that. So, I don't buy that. But the other piece is that what we did is now the demographic survey is out of submittable. That is what it is. Okay. But when one of our remaining precious fields, we put something that says Foglifter is by and for queer and trans writers, please confirm that you identify as LGBTQ+.
Okay.
And then if you check that and you just lie straight to my face, then like, I don't know what to tell you. Like that's a bummer. You're not a good person. So, so that also I think helped because we did still, even with the complex demographic surveys, we were still getting work from like straight people that they just went and they, in the section where it said like, sexuality, they click straight and we're like, like you can't be here.
Right.
So I think it's better. So that's how that happens. Your work comes in and then we have a team. So your work is read by the managing editor, reads everything.
Okay.
The guest editor can either choose to be on a team or they can read everything.
Okay.
And I also read for the poetry team. I'm kind of like an assistant poetry editor as well, as my role. And so I'm on a team. This last one, our guest editor read everything. So then there's right now on the poetry team, at least, each team is 2 teams of 2 people. And then we split everything. Okay. So basically every submission got read by 4 people, if you do that math for this last one. So I think that is a lot. And then, so we do our votes and notes, and then the managing editor calls through, pulls the top, anything that got even like a maybe, which is So from the back end, what we see is when people have voted, you'll end up with either like -1, -2, -3, -4, or 0, which means someone gave it a maybe, and or like +1, +2, right? So we pull everything that gets a 0 and above.
Okay.
And then that goes to the editorial room, and we have 2 meetings that are usually over 2 hours long on Zoom, where everyone rereads all of that and then comes with notes, and then we talk through all of it. So we have an early decision meeting, usually like within the month that submission closes, and then our final decisions had to be done for the fall issue by June 15th. So that's when the final meeting had to happen by.
Oh, okay.
And so those are long meetings and intense. And it was interesting. Like I had via the whiting some conversations with other editors in chiefs and managing editors, and realized that that's a lot more than other magazines do.
It's a lot. Yeah. I'm surprised it's 2 hours for, so how many submissions?
4 hours total, because each meeting is over 2 hours.
Right. Okay. And that's to discuss like maybe how many submissions at that point?
That's a good question. I would bet it's around like 25, 30 in each meeting. So, you know, but we also do make our notes. So like it is true that maybe about half of those, everyone said, maybe it rose to the top and submittable, but upon rereading it within this packet of really strong work, people are like, well, I don't know about that now. I'm not sure why I voted for it. Yeah. So, you know, it's not that we talk about, we don't need to talk about every single one, but we do talk deeply about many of them. Yeah. And sometimes
it's really heartening for a writer to hear that you're taking it so seriously, and
it is serious, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's not just like, as a writer, you don't really know what's going on the other side. And I just sort of imagine editors, my vision is that editors are like sitting alone at a desk, like, no. It's just kind of very grumpy process. But I love the idea of editors like just really having these like long meetings and engaging very deeply.
Absolutely.
Weighing the work. And
I think that we have more of a responsibility maybe than a journal that's just like, send us your best work, or we're like, you know, we are trying to provide a service. Like, I mean, I definitely think we all see this as a way of serving our community. And so we have to have conversations about like, you know, how is this poem sort of like operating, but also, you know, we've had conversations where it's like, is this like a trope that we want to represent? Is this something that feels, is this like digging into this in a transgressive way, or is this harmful? You know, we really do try to see what the work is offering, like reflecting back to the community, not to, and I say also that, and to say that like the work that we do publish is like very, I think it is like weird and transgressive and strange, and it is all of that, but we want to make sure it's not, you know, harmful to people, you know, perpetuating stereotypes or you know, like narratives that we want to like counteract the narratives that society is giving us about like queer and trans people, not sort of codify them.
Sure. Has there been a recent piece that you guys have, there's been like any kind of major disagreement? I'm going like this, like physical.
I mean, I was definitely thinking of one. We had a poem a couple issues back, and we were it was sort of about the heaviness of experience, of like the trans experience, and some of our editors felt like this is too negative, like this is and some of us felt like, but this is like real, like this, like it's not always going to be like a joyful experience to be a queer or trans person. Like sometimes maybe you're going to wish that you know, this wasn't your life, or that you had an easier life, and that's okay to say, so that maybe like when you feel that way, you don't feel so alone. And something's been made of it. It isn't just like sitting there and feeling sorry for yourself, which is also great. It's okay to feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
There's art been made of it too.
Mhm.
So it's not just like sitting in that feeling.
Right.
And we ended up accepting the poem, and I think it's a fantastic poem. But it was really interesting to grapple with, is this representation of sort of like a negative feeling about this identity?
Right.
Is this okay?
Yeah.
And we went back and forth, and there are people of different gender identities on all sides of the conversation. And so
Sure.
I also think that's part of it too, is like, I guess, having people in every editorial room within Foglifter that have different identities and can, we're not sort of like being like, well, we don't really know.
Right.
Like we're just
Right.
gonna say this is fine. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was a really good conversation, and I don't know, I feel like we're all learning things from each other and
Mhm.
about each other and ourselves too in the process.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like your magazine is not just showcasing the work, but actually trying to curate a conversation around these issues. So in that way, you want to be very careful, but you also don't want to be limiting about what the conversation should be. So
Exactly.
yeah, it sounds like a really fine line.
Yeah, we want to
time,
make space
yeah.
for things that are troubling, or people, or
Right.
someone who's wrestling with something, even if, but as long as it's not like negating or, it makes people feel, yeah. So I think when we get in those conversations, we usually end up like publishing, assuming that it's not, if something's quite harmful, it's not going to make it into the room.
Right.
But if it's something that is like, well, this is really challenging, usually we're like, well, we like things that are challenging.
Right.
So we leave the
I
challenge
wonder
in.
too, like how much does consideration of audience come into this? Because in my writing group, we talk about this a lot. Like, and I know writers think about this a lot. Like if you're writing to a particular community and that community is going to be reading your work, then it might be okay to complexify the view a little bit. But if you're writing, like if you're thinking that only straight people are going to read this magazine, you want to be careful with what kind of ideas
I mean, straight people are basically not allowed to read the magazine. They can just send us money. But no, I do think that our priority, like this is by and for like queer and trans writers and readers for real. So like, I do think that having that complexity, I do think it serves everyone ultimately, because like even if a straight person reads this magazine, which they should, they will find representations of like queer and trans life that they have never seen.
Right.
Like it might be like a story about like gay zombies. It might be a story about like there's just so much breadth of experience and of craft.
Right.
And I think that in and of itself is valuable. Because I think what especially mainstream readers experience is kind of like what they want to consume, or what society says is like an acceptable way to perform your sexuality, to perform your gender. And we're like, but like people aren't like, no one fits into that, know, even people who are straight and cis don't actually fit into that. And so I hope that we offer like radical possibilities that are outside of that.
Totally. That's great. So can you tell us about a piece that was just like you were all in, and this was really like embodied what you all were trying to do, and you were all very excited about it?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's so many. I guess immediately I flashed on so a couple issues. The last issue, sometimes when I'm in the middle of an issue, I'm like, where were we? Either last issue or the issue before. We published a few poems by T.C. Tolbert, who I just admire so much. And he's doing a project where he writes back at himself before he transitions. He writes to his like that name and that person. And sort of it is so tender and so beautiful. And sort of like having that distance between who he was and who he is now. Truly, like it makes me want to cry even thinking about them. They're extraordinary, and I think he is writing a whole book of them, and I think we published 3. But I think that really is I mean, I'm a big sucker for sort of tenderness and care. And I guess I see this whole project as kind of like the politics of care. Like, you know, I think we are trying to do something political, but it's, I hope it's sort of as a service. So I think that's so beautiful because I don't know. We sort of all have these different seasons in our lives. Like, even if you can't relate to this exact experience, like you can relate to like looking back to a different self that you were, and you can imagine treating that self with tenderness and acceptance, as opposed to being like, why aren't you who I am now?
Right.
I think that's quite lovely.
Totally. Yeah. It's nice. Yeah. So do you guys run contests?
So we have one contest currently, and I think I spoke about it briefly earlier. So we have the Start a Riot Chatbook Prize. And so that is just open to local emerging queer and trans writers of color, BIPOC and Indigenous writers.
Okay.
And they can't have published a full length in their submission genre. And it's $1,000 prize. And then we make their chapbook, and we do publicity for it. And then because it's a partnership with, it's very exciting. So we partner with Still Here San Francisco, which is a great organization, and then also Radar Productions, who you may know because of the Sister Spit tour. They were founded by Michelle T, and they travel around the country. So then the author will also go on that next tour with them. So that's the contest that we run right now. What we kind of spend our money on, so to speak, is submissions are always free, 100% free. We pay our authors $25 per contributor. And we, pay cover art. We pay all of the readers. As I mentioned, we pay our guest editors, and all the editors have a stipend as well. Okay. So we definitely could consider having a contest, but I feel like we went in that order of like free submissions, pay contributors,
right.
Pay the So I think once we feel very secure and like all of that, then we may consider. I would like to put more money to the Start a Riot prize too. I think 1,000 is great for a chapbook, but I'd love it to be more. Yeah. And then maybe, we definitely want to eventually publish like single author collections. That's a big goal of ours. But right now we're like kind of in a growth stage. Like we just hired 2 assistant fiction editors that will be announced later in the summer, and a production assistant. And then we're going to be hiring a development assistant and a communications assistant. And so our staff of 10 over this year is growing to 15. I think 16. And so I think in like the next couple of years, everyone is going to have enough space to be like, right. So what are you gonna do more stuff? Because we definitely want to.
Yeah. So is this a full-time job for you? Is this like okay?
No, I have a full-time job.
Okay.
Yeah, I am an editor of a very different sort. I edit online college courses.
Yes, that's a very different sort.
Yeah. So, but I get to work from home and sit at this desk and do it. It's very great. And then I do my own writing. So I always joke that I have 3 full-time jobs.
It sounds like it. Yeah. So then this is all done like evenings, weekends, like this is all side.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I get up really early.
That's great. And so where do you see the magazine going in the future? Do you envision more events, more readings, more sounds like possibly contests, more books published through the press?
Yeah, I mean, maybe all of the above.
Yeah.
I would love to do some sort of prize for like the work that we publish. I mean, this is just spitballing, so like no promises, but like the work that we published in the previous issue or the previous year, it would be really cool to do like a editor's prize kind of thing, where we like each genre editor selects one piece, right, and gives that author a prize. I think that would be cute, right? Yeah, and definitely like continuing the chapbook series and maybe adding a single author collection in a few years. But we really want to, I think for us, we really want to make sure that we can support the books, like, because we are all authors. A lot of us are authors ourselves, and we are all writers ourselves. And we know how it feels to like have someone bring out your book and it feel really good. And also, I mean, I've published like 7 chapbooks. Like, I also know what it feels like to like have someone bring out your book and it just feel like they just like threw it into the air and ran away. You know? Yeah. So we definitely want to make sure we have like a strong publicity arm, and that we are really giving these books the best possible chance to like really succeed before we get super ambitious. Like, I think that's where I see other presses and projects like this fail, is when they overextend their staff and take on things that they actually can't support.
Totally. Yeah. Is there a good way, if people want to get more involved with the magazine, like, do you guys ever have calls for interns or readers or fellowships or anything like that?
We did have a local fellowship, an emerging writer fellowship, that we ran for the past 2 years, which was really great, but it was just for people in local to the Bay Area. And there was a youth fellow and an elder fellow, and we just had they have like a final reading in May. That was beautiful. But the grant that funded that, amidst sort of the COVID restructuring that all the foundations have been doing, that grant went away. So our fellowship is on hiatus. We'd like to do more stuff like that. I would say for now, like, submit to the magazine, and if you're in the magazine, maybe you'll be selected as a guest editor. And then we will put out calls for those positions that are upcoming. You know, next year we'll be looking to hire an assistant poetry editor. That'll be that call will be out, and all of those applications we accept during our reading period. So we definitely want to make sure no one misses it. So if someone's consistently submitting to the magazine, they'll definitely see anything that we're looking for.
Okay, that's interesting. So you said someone consistently submitting. So do you encourage people, like, keep trying? Because some magazines are like, don't, if we reject your work, don't try us again for another 6 months. Oh, you've never seen that? A lot of magazines say that, like, don't try, wait 6 months, wait a year.
I'm doing it wrong, I guess.
They don't all say that, but some
like,
definitely.
It's me again. No, I mean, what I will say that's given me perspective on my own writing is, like, there's so many submissions, like no one remembers a single submission. Like, and especially a submission that doesn't work for the journal, like no one's going to be like, oh no, it's Becky again. We don't remember that. So next time, you know, it's just like a complete tabula rasa, and there's new editors every time. And I definitely, I mean, I always send work back. I feel like the only thing that we have is, like, if we've published you have to wait at least a year to see that. Which seems fair. You know, we don't want to have the same people, and we don't want to waste your time, because we're not going to publish you in a subsequent, like, 2 issues in a row. It won't happen. So that's it. No, just people should keep trying.
That's great. Yeah. And the guest editor, do they also solicit work, or is everything through the slush pile, or what proportion is solicited versus slush?
Yeah, so the vast majority comes in through submittable. I would say it's about, like, even maybe like, well, I'll speak for the poetry team, but I'm pretty sure it's the same for the fiction team. It's like 80% of the full journal, at least, if not 90%, is from submittable. We do very actively solicit, but you know, speaking from this side of the table, which is that, you know, a lot of solicitations, people just like, sorry, I don't have anything right now. You know, there are people that I've been in conversation with for 3 years, and I will eventually publish them. It will be great, but it's not happening yet. So, so yeah, we do very actively solicit, and but we also, and I know this is a weird sore subject for people, but we also, like, frequently reject solicitations. You know, if someone just sends in, we ask for 5. If someone sends in 1 or 2 poems, like, it's more than likely that, you know, it won't be a fit. And I mean, I've also had my own solicitations rejected, but, like, I hear that people get upset about that, which is very odd, because, like, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want if someone solicited me and they were like, they it didn't work for them to accept it like begrudgingly. Like I want it to be like a yes, this is amazing feeling, or like it's totally fine, like reject. So
of course.
Yeah, so we very actively solicit. I think this past reading period, like all of our poetry editors at least had like 2 solicitations to bring to the table.
Okay.
I think I had 3 and we accepted 2 of them and we rejected 1.
Okay.
So like I'm in that room, I'm an assistant editor too. Like
right.
I don't have none of us, well, there is like one thing to sort of say overall about Foglifter, which is that like all of our decisions are made collectively.
Mm-hmm.
There's no space in which I come in and make a decision. That just doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no space where like 2 people go off in a corner and make a decision. Right. You know, we have our editorial meetings are once a month and they're usually over 3 hours long. And that's when we make every decision. And then we have, you know, our genre meetings for like deciding on work. That's the same. Like, everyone has to say yes or say no, you know, and even if it's your solicitation, you can advocate for it. If the group, you know, doesn't want to accept it, you have to, you know, you can't accept it. So I think that's important too. Like I definitely have heard of journals where it's like a people in a like a grad students or people in a room and they narrow it down and then they send it to one editor and he like makes all the decisions.
Right.
That's definitely not the case. Like
that's great.
A lot of people read it, a lot of people talk about it, and a lot of people decide on it.
Yeah, that's really comforting because it's just that there are multiple voices, multiple people weighing in on every project. I think that's great.
Yeah, we do try to also be really careful. Like, you know, if we have a submission that we see and we just like, we are not the person to read that submission, whether we don't have the cultural competency, we're not part of that community. We make sure to like flag that up to our managing editor to say like, assign this to someone else who would be a better fit.
Right.
So we definitely want to make sure that we are doing right by the submissions. You know, we want to, as much as possible, be of service to our community, you know, and like, that means really holding ourselves accountable for how much the journal reflects that community.
Absolutely. This is really interesting. Thank you. No, it sounds like such a great project, and it's just so it's so refreshing to meet editors who are really invested and wanting to see the project grow, and they're invested in like taking care of writers, because I think as a writer you often feel like you're not being taken care of very well at all. So it's really nice to see that editors are actually like holding the work with a lot of attention and care and putting time into it and sort of thinking about the ethics of all of that. And I do think most editors have that philosophy, but on the writing side, it usually feels like you don't know what's going on. It feels very anonymous and kind of excruciating. So it's really nice to see the kind of the human touch on the other side.
Thank you. I mean, I think that well, I'll speak for myself. Like I want Foglifter to be the place that, you know, that I needed there as a writer, a place that I could read and find myself, you know, in the work. And then also, you know, a community. I think we all want it to be a community where people can, you know, where they like, not only are they challenged and inspired, but also that they feel like they're seen and respected. So I think we want it to be what we wish was out there.
Oh. For your teenage self.
Right, exactly. Or myself as like a young writer who kind of looked around and was like, I don't know if I should write about queer things, because like, where am I going to place them? Like, you know, it's really magical to submit to Foglifter and know that like straight people are not going to read your work. No single straight person will cast their eyes upon it. And I think
there might be a few now. Maybe after this interview, more. So.
Just in the editorial process. I mean. That it's like you're sending it in, and it's not like you're not like, oh, is this too gay? Like, no, gay it more. Gay it up.
That's wonderful. Well, this has been great, Luiza. Thank you. Is there anything else? So submissions open again in
September
1st. September 1st, and it's foglifter.com. And
Foglifter Journal.
Foglifterjournal.com, sorry. And on Twitter, you're at Foglifter Press.
I think so, yes.
I think so too. Well,
that seems right.
Just
look for all the social links. Yes, all the social links are on the website. So
Okay,
you can also
perfect.
just like go. We have a great Instagram. Our community manager, Misha, is amazing. Everything is so beautiful. You're going to love it. You should follow us everywhere.
Wonderful. We will. Thank you so much. I'm going to end the
Thank
recording. Thank
you.
you.